Hi, I'm Tom Nowetner, 12-year survivor. I'm here with my wife, Erin Cavanaugh. She is Irish witch that brews pastes and creams for me, and also has figured out how she's found the doctors that keep me alive. So once again, Erin Cavanaugh, my caregiver, and my wife on a week-to-week contract.
Hi, everybody. I know that when our event happened, it was pretty momentous. There's a defining moment in your life when things abruptly change and you have to scurry to keep up. Our momentous moment that changed everything for us was early in the morning on December 23rd, 2012, when Thomas called me to the kitchen. I was barely awake and said, I think I have to go to the hospital. I'm in a lot of pain. And I said, okay, let me just throw on some clothes. I'll take you. And he said, no, I've already called the ambulance because I don't think it's going to be pretty and I don't want you there. I don't want you to see this, which was flabbergasting to me to begin with, that, you know, not only was I barely awake and being hit with this, but then he tells me, I've given you all the tools in my toolbox and you'll be okay. And it was just so much to absorb. Thomas is fond of using tools as a reference to life on a lot of scales. So all of the things about using real tools, using philosophical tools, using emotional tools were a menagerie of stuff that he'd given me over the many years we've been together. So the ambulance comes, he walks himself out the door and down the driveway, and he ends up walking himself into the ambulance. And when he struggles to get in the back of the ambulance, has to tell the EMT, a little help, please. So we get to the hospital. It's a blur. I take care of our daughter, making sure that she's able to get to school and drop her off with grandma. Get to the hospital, and we find out that the doctor says if I don't operate on him within an hour, he's going to die. Okay, operate, you know. So within the same hour that the surgeon had told me if they didn't operate, he would die, he came back to me and said he couldn't operate. And, you know, for whatever anybody's faith-based might or might not be, the Lord works in mysterious ways. And I am very happy that in hindsight, of course, being 2020 as it is, that surgeon didn't operate, because I think it was outside the scope of what he was going to be able to do. Tom was so severely compromised with the way his aorta had dissected, which no one ever used those terms to me, and I didn't know what was going on. But he said, I can't do this surgery. So therefore, he laid in a hospital bed, receiving fentanyl as often as he could, which wasn't very long. For anybody who doesn't know, fentanyl, although powerful, you know, given in a hospital situation, doesn't last very long, maybe 45 minutes. But the max they'll give you is every 4 hours. So he was in a lot of pain for a substantial amount of time, somewhat out of it and somewhat not. And I was very insecure, didn't know what was happening. So at one point, I guess Tom clocked it as 17 days later, the doctor came to me and said, we've done all that we can for him. There's no more that we can do, which horrified me, because I still didn't understand the severity of what was going on, only that he was going to die if I didn't do something. So I reached out to my cousins on Long Island and made a few phone calls and was able to get him airlifted down to LIJ. And what?
What's LIJ?
LIJ, Long Island Jewish. They have many, many locations, but we were in, I can't remember which whatever it was. But anyway, there was a doctor there who was doing extensive work with dissections. So on a very cold, windy, snowy, dark night, I stood there on a Wednesday and watched him take off in a life flight helicopter with my earplugs on and saw my life going away because I couldn't go with him. They didn't offer me to go with him. It was going to be 4 hours away. And foolishly, I thought, okay, in my conversations with them, they said, we'll take him down here and we'll do the surgery. So I was thinking, okay, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, okay, they'll do the surgery. I'll go down on Friday, I'll pick him up and we'll come home. Well, that was not to be, because when I arrived down there Friday evening after work, they informed me that they were not going to be able to do the surgery once again. I've never passed out, but my knees buckled. And if it wasn't for the fact he had an ensuite bathroom that I was able to sit down on the toilet for just a moment, I'd have been on the floor. I didn't know what to do. So they medically managed him. It was quite an event to see him hooked up to 5 different IVs at one time, all the pills, all that was going on, and they were just keeping his blood pressure down. So
The morphine was great.
yeah. So when then they finally figured out they too had done all they could for him. They wanted to put him into rehab. At that point, he'd been down there for quite a while and decided he was not going to be separated from everyone for any longer. He wanted out. So we got them to discharge us, but they dragged their feet to the point where when we were discharged, we didn't get discharged till 10 o'clock at night. I was 4 hours away from home. He hadn't been out of bed in a month. They released us
39
with no walker, no crutches, no means of transporting or walking. They put us in the car with a bunch of paper prescriptions at 10 o'clock at night. They didn't even give us medication to leave with to get us through the next 24 hours. So fortunately for me, I had family in Long Island, so I figured we would have a place to land. I wouldn't have to begin the drive 4 hours north at that hour. But the problem still remained. He needed his meds. So thinking, okay, where am I going to go? It's open at 10 o'clock at night, and that would transfer prescriptions 4 hours north when we needed a refill. So we ended up at a CVS because, they're everywhere. And once again, Tom's life was saved by the pharmacy technician, student actually, doing his internship, who told me in no uncertain terms that if he filled those prescriptions the way they were written, they would kill him. So they were written incorrectly with grams instead of micrograms or whatever, vice versa. Not one of the prescriptions, but 2 of them. Meanwhile, poor Tom is struggling because at this point he has to go to the bathroom. He's been sitting in the car now while I've been trying to straighten out these prescriptions for an hour. So I frantically buy 2 walking canes and get them out to the car for him so that he can attempt to walk in to the CVS to use the restroom. Mind you, hasn't been out of bed to walk really at all other than short jaunts down the hallway. It was a big struggle. It was a pretty scary thing. So we finally get all that done, get our prescriptions, get out of there, crash at my brother's overnight, and then come home. So the events that unfold after that, thank you. I'm working on it. The guy that talks forever is telling me I'm talking too long. Anyway, so thus began our fragility, I guess, section of this book, because we're afraid you're afraid to touch him, you're afraid to have him walk, you're afraid for everything that can go wrong because they seem so delicate. So we finally find a GP who is wonderful, willing to take him on, because nobody wants the loss in their column, we discovered. Doctors were very hesitant to touch him, to have anything to do with him, because everybody, medical professionals included, thought he was going to die. So 4 years later,
I
we have
didn't
finally-
die, by the way.
You didn't die. No, you didn't die. So he was feeling poorly, and the insurance company, which is always a pleasant thing to deal with, thank God for them, but it's the double-edged sword. So he wanted to get a CT scan because he just felt like something wasn't right. And the insurance company started to fight him about it. And the insurance agent actually said to him that they were denying the scan. And he said, it's part of my program. I'm supposed to have one done every year. And the person said, you didn't get one last year, so why would you need one this year? So we went to the emergency room because he was just feeling that poorly. Meanwhile, I had been doing some research about aortic doctors, aortic hospitals in our area, because it didn't seem like there was going to be any information far and wide about having any sort of help. So anyway, I discovered an aortic a hospital close by in Albany that was just 2.5 hours north of us, where they were capable of handling aortic cases. And by extension, I found a couple of doctors, and we'd been discussing them. So in the emergency room, the nurse practitioner, not even a doctor that was assigned to him, decided that he needed a scan, so they were going to do the scan, but they didn't go far enough down in his abdomen. So he gave us a diagnosis of diverticulosis. Told me, I said, he had an aortic dissection a few years ago. Oh, I'm not even concerned about that, he says. If he was going to have a dissection, he would have had it by now. So no, I'm not even concerned about that. I was horrified. Seriously? He's presenting with all these problems that are very similar in nature and pain to the original dissection, and you're not concerned. So one of the two doctors listed in the Albany area, I called. For whatever reason, the number didn't work. They didn't answer the phone, whatever. Intervention again, divine intervention. The next number I called, I spoke with the nurse in the office because I was a little savvy and I pushed 2 for a medical professional rather than just calling for an appointment. So the next voice I heard after I explained our dilemma to the nurse was the actual surgeon himself, Dr. Maida. Dr. Maida, God bless him, he was the total answer to prayer. We got an appointment with him a week later. We went to Albany and he examined everything, looked at all the scans, and then he said, okay, come back next week and we'll decide what we're going to do. So we went back and he sat down. He is the best. He sat down with his legal pad and did his kindergarten sketch of an aorta and what we were looking at. And he crossed his legs and he looked at us and he said, I've got a plan. He said, it's not a very good plan, but it's a plan. And Tom said, I'm in. So gradually over the next 4 or 5 years, he pieced them together. We have stents upon stents all over the place. And he also did his carotid because that was occluded. I also tease, I don't know how you all feel, but I tease about having lowercase MDs after our name because, because of all the research and the stuff we've had to do to stay alive. We are not medical professionals. I do want to say that, but we kiddingly, because everything we do, we research. And what's good for one person isn't necessarily the panacea for another. Just like perfumes, the same perfume smells different from one person to the next. The same applies for what we do. What we do and what I'm hoping to do with this is to just give support and hope to other people, because I was flying blind. I didn't know anything, didn't know anyone, and was just trying my best to keep him alive. And that, and frightened to death the whole time that I'd make a misstep or something would be wrong. So a lot of what we've done has been trial and error. So moving on from Dr. Maida and how wonderful he was and keeping Tom alive and helping us and seeing us through some of the scariest times, I can't say enough about him. We moved on to needing something for pain relief because the pain was ongoing and there wasn't anything further that being stented was going to do to help. Dr. Maida had done as much as he could do. Now we were left with just the day-to-day living. I've always been infatuated by the American Indian, by the Indians of their culture, just the way they use natural herbs to heal and to feed their people. And I think medical science has its place, but I think I would rather use it after I've tried the holistic ways of doing things. So because of the way that it builds up and you have to graduate to higher and higher doses, stronger and stronger meds, I became very interested in what we could do for Tom holistically through oils. And so I started doing a lot of research on that. I have some friends who are also involved in oils. So I started gradually using them. And my early oil mixing, the essential oils, I used a coconut, a liquefied coconut, fractionated coconut oil as my base and put the oils in that, which was like a regular oil that you would consider, you know, like olive oil kind of thing. You can also use olive oil as your medium too. But it was liquefied, you know. So I branched out from there and started using the purified, the organic coconut, which is something akin to like a Crisco consistency, so that it would kind of moisturize into his skin and maybe last a little longer. And for us, that's kind of worked a little bit, constantly researching all the oils that can help with circulation, that can help with pain. And I change those mixtures. I give him 4 to 5 different types of mixtures that he can alternate between. Because they are holistic and natural, he kind of builds up a tolerance to them after a week or 2 of using them. So he moves on to the next one and then the next one, so he can circle back around. And I can still continue to do my research and tweak them as we go along.
And vitamins.
And vitamins too. We're really big into a lot of vitamins to help with circulation and heart. The electrolytes were a big thing for us. I found a natural electrolyte, unlike having Gatorade or the like. This is a natural, you mix it in with your water. You can mix it in with juice. We're big on, part of the problem that happened when he first dissected was a lack of blood flow to the kidneys. So he was in renal failure at that time. He had an excellent nephrologist who really brought his kidneys back around, and she was a blessing. And he takes vitamin D3 for that, a pretty big dose to keep the kidneys going, and his kidneys are just about what they would be normally if he hadn't dissected.
For a 73-year-old guy.
For a 73-year-old guy, yeah, that too. So I want to thank you for listening. I don't want to feel like I'm droning on and on. Certainly open to answering any questions that anyone might have. I will come back on and hopefully help others, because you know it's something that's really dear to my heart, is helping others to not have to be so frightened of this journey. And now, of course, there's been so much and so many support groups. It's a world of difference than when he dissected in 2012, 2 days before Christmas. So I'm certainly here to help anybody in any way I can. Certainly we are not medical professionals, not medically trained, not chemically trained. I have no
Google
chemistry.
trained.
Yeah, Google trained would be a good way to do it, because I didn't even take chemistry in high school. So it's trial and error, and I'm open to listening. I'm open to helping. I'm open to any questions. And thank you so much, everyone.
That was lovely.
Is that okay?
I think it was lovely, 100%. Can you tilt the camera just a little bit? Let's get Mr.
To Tom?
Ryan in there. Yeah.
You want
What?
him in there?
Well,
I don't want
Vince,
to be in
I
here.
just want to ask some questions and I want to see his perspective on the questions. So, did you make the 4 hour flight? I'm sorry, did you make the 4 hour drive that night or did you go in the morning?
I didn't. I had just started a brand new job and I was in training.
Okay.
And I was terrified of losing my job and all of my medical benefits. So,
Yeah.
um, I spoke to him frequently throughout the day when I could. And when he was here in our area, I saw him before work and after work, and I stayed until they kicked me out.
Hang on. We have this cousin named Mary. She was there constantly.
Yeah,
I don't
my
remember.
cousins
I don't
were.
remember a lot of it, but she was there every day. She would bring other people with her.
Yeah, they went in
I-
shifts to check on him.
Yeah,
When
I was
I was
never
there
alone except
yeah,
overnight.
I made the trip down every weekend.
Okay.
I would leave Friday night after work and come home or come back to work on Sunday night, and
For 99
while he was
days.
down there. But my mother's whole family is in Long Island,
Hmm.
so although he was in Bayshore, that's where it was. So they were on the other side of the island, but they made the trek over to see him, and he was very seldom alone. So that was the greatest part about family, right?
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
So 99 days go by while he's still being treated and monitored. And this is when you get this trek back and have to make a stop at CVS. When did
Well, wait a minute, it was 39 days,
39
and I
days?
said to my physician, I'm done. We haven't changed up my regiment. I think it was at that time, it was like 20 days. So I want to be discharged. Well, he panicked. I said, why are you panicking? I'm taking all the risk. So anybody knows AMA, it's a real pain in the ass signing yourself out against medical orders or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, I just told him I was leaving. And I told him that I was leaving that day. I don't care if it's, in the middle of the night, I'm out of here. So, of course, when you do that to people, one, they're not ready for it. And two, even though I was pretty well beaten down, I still had my way of talking to people to make them understand that there are far greater terrible things that can happen than just release me. So they did.
he has such a persuasive personality.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Psychopath.
Sociopath. All right. So we're talking, this is 39 days, and then we get our trek home.
Yes.
Getting into the house and getting him situated and getting used to a new normal. We hear from the caregiver group a lot that there's definitely some post-traumatic stress that hits the caregivers.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about what it was like trying to get to sleep those first few weeks?
Well, trying to balance everything. Our circumstances were even more extenuating that we had torn our house. You can see behind me, we still are in sheetrock, torn it down to the studs, rewired, took out the heat. So we couldn't even come home. I had to go to my mother's house
In the same town.
in the same town. So, and she has a house that, you have,
Multi-level.
it's got multi-levels. So we were in the lower level trying to situate, going downstairs. He hadn't done stairs at all. But there was a bathroom on that level and but you're afraid of what do you do? What if? The what if questions probably are the most horrifying. Is what if something goes wrong? What if, how do I handle it? What do I do? Who do I call? Who can handle this?
Nobody.
And not kill him. That's true. Nobody could.
Except her. And I don't know why.
No. There's a lot riding on it because in addition to PTSD over him, My dad fell and broke his neck just before my 12th birthday and was a quadriplegic. Hospitals and that were kind of like second nature to me. So although the circumstances were different, my father couldn't move. We were all in my family caregivers for my dad as well. So I learned a lot from my mother's stamina and standing by and, you know, I guess raised with the idea that doctors were the gods with little g's. You didn't question too much. I've had to learn how to be a little bit more assertive, not perfect by any stretch with being assertive. I still have a ways to go, but I'm learning to question things and not accept everything at face value. And so
So it was
the
a good thing.
PTSD, it comes and goes, right? Depending on the circumstances. If you've got good days and he's doing good and he's fine and the pain is tolerable and he's eating well and sleeping well, you take a little sigh until the next time when it isn't so good. And then you wonder
When you
what
fall
more
in
you
the
can
shower.
do. Or when you fall in the shower. Or when you just fall. You can just fall anywhere, anytime. So it's kind of a helpless feeling.
Okay. I like to know that there's a family history of caregiving,
Mm,
right? So, and like you said, there's an armor there to watching somebody else be able to kind of forge ahead. You've seen this, you've
yeah,
already kind of been there, so it almost feels like old hat.
to a certain extent, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was quite amazed in my younger days when people had told me they were surprised my mother didn't leave my father when he was paralyzed. And it was such a foreign thought to me that number one, someone would have the audacity to say that to me. And number two, that it just never even occurred to me that you would leave someone, you would leave your spouse, you would leave a loved one just because it was difficult. That just was outside the purview of my thinking.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the prescription juggling that we seem to hear in this community. Early
22
on,
pills twice a day.
22 pills twice a day now.
Nope,
No.
that's what I was discharged with.
Yeah, I would sit there literally with a checklist to make sure I didn't miss anything. And I would check off each item as I put it in his pill box to make sure I didn't miss anything. It was an ordeal to get his pills ready for the week. Unbelievable ordeal. Make sure you didn't miss anything.
Now I'm on 4 medicines
Okay,
and a
but
whole lot of
let's not skip
voodoo.
too far ahead. So 22 pills you're discharged with. How long was that regimen? How long does that go?
Long time.
Almost 4 years.
Yeah,
Almost
long time.
4 years. And
That's medical management.
what was the inciting incident to made that get questioned?
Maida.
Well, Dr. Maida, but also, you know, you realize that there is a balance where that, you know, between medically managing your blood pressure and being able to function, right? Because they sometimes make it so low you can't get out of your own way, and that's not good either. So we began when he didn't die.
How about side effects?
got-
Nobody talks about all the side effects.
Right? But we also got emboldened by the fact he didn't die, right? So he was to the point where he was, I can't live like this anymore. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. We certainly weren't going to do anything dangerous. And, you know, he'd
And
certainly,
also we had a ace in the hole, Dr. Bertini,
our
who was an
GP.
excellent researcher, not
Right.
only a doctor, but a researcher. And she helped me
Right.
reduce the pills. You know, it didn't happen overnight. It took probably about another 4 years before I got down to, you know, minimum. But the truth of the matter is, you have to do it. You have to have somebody to do it for you. 40% is on the doctors and the hospitals and the CT scans. and the medicines and all that. But 60%, I believe, this is what I go on, is your willingness to try, and when it doesn't succeed, try again and try again. I can't tell you how many medicines I've been on, and I did have a list at one time, but I lost it. But it's you. You will limit yourself, or you will expand your world. Finding aortic hope for me was that like milestone. I'll never forget when I clicked into the original. It was a weekly review, and then I clicked into the Hangout and almost lost my mind.
Well, you have to learn to be your own advocate, unless you have someone advocating with you.
But you have to do it.
But certainly you have to be informed. You can't just say, okay, I'll take whatever it is you're going to give me because you're the doctor and I'm the patient. And I don't think that's the best route to take. I think you need to ask the questions. What is this medicine going to do for me? Why are you prescribing it? Do your searching, your Google or your Chrome or whatever it is you want to search with. Look up these drugs, look up what they talk about, side effects, and look up what the benefits are.
And the interaction between them. Never forget that,
right?
column.
Especially with the amount of drugs he was taking, people get lost in the minutia and don't realize that there can be some interactions, and those interactions can be real subtle. So you have to do your explorations, and some of those fine print reactions might be what you're experiencing. It might not be these full-blown allergic things. So that would probably be the best advice you could do, is just learn to ask the questions.
Right on. I love that we preach self-advocacy, right?
Absolutely.
Self-advocacy, it saves lives. It really does.
Well, not only does it save lives, but one of the biggest things, it makes you feel somewhat in control. And that every person that's had anything to do with an aorta and has a PTSD, when you feel like you don't have any control, it's heartbreaking. It will diminish you for 3 to 5 days. You won't get over it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the isolation. So inside of the support groups, we hear about people who they lose touch with family members because they don't understand what's happening with them. And this is an invisible disease, so it doesn't look like there's anything wrong with you. But that doesn't really talk so much about the caregiver perspective, where, again, you can't really lean on a family member. They don't know what you're talking about. They aren't seeing the day-to-day. And you still feel like you're the only person that you can lean on to make sure that things are going well.
I think that you feel like you're the only person you can lean on because you don't trust anybody else. You can love your family, but you're very protective of the loved one that's going through this. You feel very responsible as the quote unquote healthy person, right? Because I'm the healthy one and I've got the legs and I can walk and I can go and I can do, and I need to protect him. And no, most people, unless you have family that has medical professionals in it, can't begin to understand what a dissection is. I can't tell you how many times I've described to people, because most people will say, how's Tom doing? The heart attack and all. After a while, it just gets easier to say, he's doing good, because it's just too much to explain what an aortic dissection is to every person who asks.
Yeah, that's fair. Did you guys have an opportunity to look over the patient guide?
Yes. In fact, I had 4 of them. I gave them out.
And did you introduce that patient guide to the children?
To my children, all my children are tested. My children, after this, my one son works for Medtronic, so my daughter works as an RN, and yeah, we're uh, were on top because my grandfather, my dad, and my brother died from dissections. And we didn't know it ran in the family because each one of them were told it was a heart attack on their death certificate.
And so now
Yeah.
we know that there's a genetic component.
Yes. So, yeah.
We're members of a group we didn't ask to belong to.
Tom's a good member.
Yeah, when I'm high and buzzed.
He's a very vocal member.
Who's going to Ireland in November?
What's bringing you to Ireland?
That presentation from the girl, the American in Ireland, representing, what is it called?
The Global Heart Hub?
Yeah.
Oh, I love to hear this.
You going with us?
I got to get my passport updated. I got to tell a bunch of my clients I'm going to be unavailable. It's going to be a hard stretch.
Well, we're only going for
That
4 or
does-
5 days.
You know,
Come
that kind
on.
of sounds like it's utopic, don't you think, Joshua?
I mean, I can't be responsible for getting drunk with Thomas.
Oh,
You have not seen better people to drink with than the Irish. I was in a pub at 11 o'clock in the morning, nobody else there. And the girl yells to the back, "There's a pensioner outside." That's what they call old people, pensioners. And sure enough, it came out. Yeah. Gave me a pretty good whiskey, local whiskey.
That's the way to live.
yeah, it was beautiful. It was, the pictures that I was able to take were just amazing. And
So-
of course, driving over there.
It was a horror.
Well, I did the driving and he did the navigating. Well, he wasn't yelling that I was on the wrong side of the road or make sure when I was turning that I was going into the
We
right.
went a turnabout maybe 4 times before
We
got
did
off.
not.
I'm telling you, there were
He's
people
lying.
that were standing
Yeah.
there counting on their fingers as we went by.
That's not true.
Hey, listen, Josh, I'm not kidding, man. The tickets are only around $500 round trip. The hotels are a third of the price on the busy season. We're only going 4 or 5 days.
We went in,
If you guys get in touch with that Global Heart Hub lady, she's gonna they take care of the whole thing.
Well, we would like
Right.
that. That would be
That'd
okay.
be nice, but
Because
you
that
know,
would give me the extra
we're-
spending money.
I didn't know about this email everybody got. I didn't get it.
No, Karen misunderstood. She just sent out everything else. Yeah.
And then yesterday was the cutoff day.
That's okay. That's okay. She knows.
So
that.
I shot off 2 emails, one to her and one to the event coordinator.
Yeah,
so she'll be
I'd
looking
like
for
to.
it.
I'd like to have it taken care of. That'd be okay with me. That gives me more to spend on the whiskey.
She's a cheap Irish broad.
I am. No, you know, when this is not for the recording, but yeah, I tell him I collect antiques. That's why I keep him around.
Oh, very,
that's a
very
good one.
funny. That's painful.
It's true.
You don't have to tell people. You're on a week contract.
Well, and
so-
that's the other thing. When you've been married as long as we have, we're on a week-to-week contract. If you don't behave, that's it. You're done.
This guy.
This guy, I know.
Right.
This guy, never a dull moment. I'm telling you. Some people will do anything for attention, even having a dissection.
Okay. So on to the prescription thing. So how long have you been on the prescriptions that you're on now, without altering it?
About 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had some new additions though.
Yeah, we had because
Because
of different.
we had
I'm getting older, so I have to.
no, you had what you had to have before the Watchman.
Well, you had to have the Jardian,
Yeah,
and then when they took me off the Eliquis
when you got the Watchman,
I got the Watchman,
right?
and they also took me off the blood thinners because of the mitral valve clip.
Right. So we've had a couple of surgeries to make changes that would take him off of some medicines as opposed. The only thing I think he's had.
That timeline. Let's go through that timeline.
Well, the only thing that
Well, it's been the last 2.5 years. You know, I've been not only dealing with aortic disease, I'm now dealing with getting old. Arthritis, my peripheral vision on my left eye seems to be gone. I got black floaters in the left eye. I got
That's very new.
amoebas in the right eye.
That's very new.
And, you know, I'm down to less than 10 steps.
Yeah, the arthritis is a big detriment. The pain and the neuropathy that we've been blaming a lot on, his foot turns in. His left foot turns in, so he walks on the side of it, which we've always attributed to the lack of blood flow that happened from the dissection, because he was without blood for so long, which caused the renal issues and the circulation to the lower legs. But in the last little bit, he had seen an excellent nurse practitioner at the pain clinic who said, you know, has anybody ever looked at the source of the pain to begin with? And I said, you know, really, if you think about it, each specialty looks at pain from their perspective. You've got the vascular surgeon looking at it from his perspective. You've got the cardiologist looking at it from their perspective. So each person was considering, the surgeons, considering the pain is coming from where their specialty lies. So what she did was pull it all together, and we went for a nerve test.
You are not going to believe the size of the needles they stick in your leg.
They're 10 feet long.
No, they are not, but they're big enough to really hurt. And then this maniac puts electric to them.
Yeah. So, but one thing was for sure, we very nicely found out that a lot of his pain is coming from his back. The neuropathy we thought was a result of the aortic dissection and the lack of blood flow is actually got something to do with his back. He's got degenerative discs, and he had curvature of the spine from a young age. So
I was born with Asper.
Yeah. So all of that really is stemmed, but it was like a perfect storm. The dissection, the curvature, having its bulging discs, his age, all these things, and his long work hours. He's never been one to sit down for very long, you know.
And I'm 73 and I'm still alive.
Being in corrections and being a chef, all of those things were very long hours and on your feet. So, so the hard life. Go ahead, sing your song. 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day
older and deeper in debt. Say, Peter, don't call, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store.
So anyway, so all of those things came together to be this perfect storm that he's been living with. And so, you know, we really never knew exactly where everything was coming from. Had we known some of these things in advance, you know, we could have maybe lessened the effects, but who knows at this late stage. So we do the best we can, keep researching for things that are new. The Watchman, he started having trouble with AFib. So we started dealing with that. They shocked his heart to get it back into rhythm, and I think it did more damage than it ever helped, because the AFib did not go away, and he's ended up with got worse, and now they've listed him with CHF, congestive heart failure. And I don't know, another perfect storm, whether this did some damage, whether it was there, whatever, but he's noticeably worse since they tried to shock his heart back into rhythm.
So here's the good part. So I got to go for a stress test. Well, I'm not running on a treadmill. They got to give me chemicals. Now I've got to research all the chemicals with the pills I take, because admittedly, the cardiologist is really good and the cardiac surgeon is really good, but some of these techs, not so good.
Well, we always have to worry about any type of scans that require dyes or the like, or any of these medications, especially one that's going to make him feel like he's run a marathon, right? So, because that's what they do with the drug-induced stress test. And with the fact that he's got down to 30% use of the heart, this is kind of concerning to me that they would even consider doing something like this. back in the day, he also had pericarditis way back in the day. So, so
I
all
also
these
wrecked
nerves are,
19 cars.
yeah, he did that too. That's why I never let him. After he wrecked my Camaro, that was it. I don't trust him with my cars. So he's had the Watchman as of recent. He had a clip put in his spine to help with some of the spinal degeneration. What else do we have? Oh, you had what's that?
Stuff.
What's
Spurs in my neck.
You have spurs in your neck now too, but what was the thing that they did before the Watchman?
Mitral valve.
The mitral valve clip. They did that. So he's had several recent things go on within the last 2.5 years. But other than that, I think we're pretty stable for the minute.
For the minute.
Yeah. We're knock on
Listen,
wood.
it's
You
a
just
minute to
jinxed us.
minute. It's a
You
minute to
just
minute.
jinxed us.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to say the Q word at work because as soon as you say it's quiet, the bottom falls out. So.
All right. Anything else there, Joshua?
What is sleep like for you now?
Oh, see, this is getting older and getting off all the medicine is very good. Now, I get an hour or two in the afternoon, and then I go to bed around 9:30, unless I want to watch the news. And then I don't wake up until probably 4 or 5 in the morning. So my sleep, compared to 2 years ago, is much better. I'm getting these nice long distance, unconscious hours, and it kind of rejuvenates me. However, because of my friend Joshua, I've had to turn my schedule around. And, my good times used to be from like 6 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. But if we're going to do this stuff later, I have to get to a normal
I'll have to
person's-
take a little more long nap in the
Yeah, I'll
afternoon.
take another hour nap.
That's the joy of being retired.
Retarded?
Yeah,
I'm not
that-
retarded.
That too. But yeah, no, he's struggled a lot with sleep apnea. And there's oftentimes I would have to rub his back during the night because I would notice subconsciously that he wasn't breathing. So he's lost quite a bit of weight, which has helped a great deal with that sleep apnea. He does not seem to be plagued with it quite as much as he was over the years.
Now, the big secret to good sleep is 3 tramadols, a gummy, 2, 5.
You're not medical.
Oh, that's right, I'm not. But I'm saying one that's good for me.
Okay.
3 tramadols, a
See,
gummy.
this is not prescribed by a medical professional. He
Yeah,
is
there's
not a
no medical professional who came up with this one. So 1.25 gummy THC and Vicks Vapor Rub.
Vicks Vapor Rub on your feet is the best. Especially if you've got a cough.
Well, I believe that it just calms you.
He used to think that was all poo-poo. All this stuff was witch's brew, and he didn't believe it until he started to take it and have me. So now I rub his feet quite often. The other thing that we use, another thing that was very beneficial for us, I forgot, was the pants.
Right? You want to get them?
So, no.
But I got these great compression pants.
You may notice that when you're in the hospital, especially if you've got anything circulatory, they'll put on these compression leg things that will massage your legs to keep your blood flowing to your extremities. Well, we bought one for home. This is set number 3, I think we're on now, that we've burned through. But we sincerely believe they've helped with the circulation and keeping the varicose veins down. We also wear compression stockings. We were loath to do that to begin with, but as much as we struggle to get them on and off, they truly help him make it through the day. He wears stabilizing shoes to help his ankles stay firm. But we wear the compression stockings every day. And sometimes if the pain is bad or the aching in the legs, we'll put those compression pants on more than once during the day. We don't leave them on. You can leave them on for a half hour, or better. We don't do that anymore. We did start that. That was another thing that we've had to adjust to what works best. So, so for us, not being medical professionals, we felt really lucky to have stumbled on using this technology at home.
That's really excellent to hear. What was the secret to him dropping some weight?
I gave up. I was depressed. I didn't care. I basically was going to swallow a bullet.
He did have some severe bouts of depression with all of this because it was so limiting to the lifestyle. You know, coming and going as you please, get up and doing this. As I said, we had just torn apart our whole house, moved a staircase ourselves, did all the rewiring and all this. I mean, we just blew this house out. And then to not be able to do anything, or the worst thing that I encountered with him, as well as my father, who was paralyzed from the neck down, is learning how to speak your words, right? When you can't do it yourself and you have to instruct someone else. And, you know, it's very frustrating for you, the person trying to convey what you want done, as well as the person trying to understand what you're trying to convey to be done. So there's a huge disconnect there. Not only are men from Mars and women from Venus, but this takes it to the nth degree even more so. My dad couldn't use his hands, and he was a very smart guy. He was a civil engineer. So we became his hands, working on plans of drawings for houses and writing on them and doing mathematical equations for snow loads for roofs. And Thomas trying to talk me through, you know, building something, wiring something. Brianna, our daughter, was much better at understanding him because he had done so much interaction with her when she was an infant on up, that she gets him, you know. So he talked her through wiring outlets, and she can change the innards of a toilet, and she can do all this stuff. And she can also tell him it's enough, and she'll draw the line in the sand and give it right back to him. But it's a huge learning curve in how to communicate.
Oh, another thing, I've got a group of guys, laborers. So when I'm feeling good enough, or the weather is good enough, or I just want to abuse myself, I hire in these laborers so they can be my hands and they can lift and carry things. Because like this one laborer, he came to me, he was totally naive about any kind of construction. Now he's running air hammers and saws and levels and squares.
Yeah.
And
he and I built our fence, this laborer and I, and one day it was one of our grandkids and me, and then it was this laborer and me, and then it was just me. I can use the nail gun too, and I can use the chop saw too, and so we're all, it's a learning curve.
Everybody stands across the street when she's at it.
If I could just get him to stand across the street and let me go. Because you know, he's got an opinion about everything. But in case you didn't know, he has an opinion about everything.
Wait a minute. Let's admit to the public, you don't know left from right and up and down. So it's very hard
I
to
know
explain.
up and down. Left to right, I have to think, yes.
You have to explain things that usually people take for granted, you know, and, you know, reading a tape measure, that's just a ruler, but
well,
much bigger.
North and South, I admit it. I work for the transportation department, and I went in there and I said, look, I am geographically challenged. Do not tell me north and south and east and west. Just, you know, tell me a store it's near and I can do it.
Okay, hang on. However, like all women of her age, she has to
have.
What
you talking about, Willis?
Napkins in her hand at all times. So that means she's always working with one hand because the other one's full of napkins. Why they have napkins in their hand? Maybe they got a sweat or dirt. I don't know. But this is annoying to someone who's worked in the industry for a long time. And when you see somebody holding a trivial item like that and not working with both hands, it kind of drives you nuts.
You're gonna have to start referring to that as the napkin hand.
Will you get your hand empty so you can manage this board? Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's the mom in me or whatever. You got to be prepared to do something else with the other hand.
Yeah, well, I don't need you to wipe my nose, so why you
Well,
got it now?
I need to wipe mine.
So, Josh,
And-
what else?
All right, so that's medications, that's sleeping. We talked a little bit about the post-traumatic stress. What about physical therapy? Is this an ongoing effort?
Well, right now, I've graduated into chair yoga,
Yeah.
and I use 5-pound and 10-pound weights. And I've been going to this one lady in Johnson City, New York, which is just down the road. However, a friend of mine who's in a wheelchair said, Tom, you got to check out Cleveland Clinic chair exercises for people with heart conditions. Oh my God. I signed up for it. I think I got 28 videos. So now I don't do the same routine every day. I pick a different routine.
The chair yoga was great. He didn't really ever do much in the realm of physical therapy.
Well, wait a minute.
You did
After
physical,
my knees.
but not as a result of being in bed with the aorta. No. He had 2 rounds because he had each of his knees replaced. So, we had that too.
Oh, by the way, when you're talking about exercising, you're not talking about sex, right?
We can if you'd like.
Okay. We're Catholic. We don't know how that works.
Yeah. Anyway, so he did have the rehab for the knees, which he did very well. Because all you have to do is issue Tom a challenge.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. He will do the challenge plus a little more all the time. So they were hoping for what, I don't know, what was the knee she wanted, and you were like 110. She wanted 100. You
No,
needed
she
100.
wanted me to bend it to 140, and I was at 110. So she challenged me. She says most people take 8 weeks to do this. I said, yeah, great. I'm not coming here for 8
Hold my
weeks.
beer.
Yeah, hold my beer.
Or hold my crown.
Yeah, hold my crown royal.
So he's always rising to whatever challenge anybody gives him. Getting a little tired now that he's getting older, and it's a little bit
What you
harder.
talking about?
But I think overall, when we started out between the lack of information and feeling like we were free floating, and the 2% survival rate, I think that we've done pretty well. And there's always room for improvement.
I'm alive.
There's always new things being developed, and as evidenced by the survival rate being what it is right now. Who would have ever known that the survival rate could be what it is 12 years ago, right? So we're very lucky. We're learning that although life is fragile and the circumstances were very fragile, that he's still pretty resilient, and we don't necessarily have to tiptoe around like you're walking on eggshells, because you just feel like, can you touch, can you not, can you squeeze, can you hug, can you there's so many variables where you feel like someone is fragile when it comes to the heart and all of that. What?
Can we go over this?
Yeah, we went over it already. You're right. I'm repeating.
Well, I don't know if I can think of any other questions. Those are usually
Good.
my highlighted questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for your patience. Appreciate you.
It's my pleasure.